Hi, everyone. Carter Krishna here for Beyond the 90. I think in terms of this conversation we're having about promotion and relegation, I'm going to start with the easiest one to explain, where there's less pushback than on some of the financial stuff and when it comes to growing the footprint of the game. And that's player development. Very, very obvious. And I think we're at 80 or 90% agreement here, but there is the 10 to 20% that seem to think it will have no effect or a detrimental effect on player development. Quite frankly, using arguments I don't understand, which is not the case with those other two pieces we're going to talk about in the future. So, with player development, I think it's really obvious how promotion and relegation helps player development because you have increased investment in the sport, you have increased investment in facilities, you have clubs that are incentivized to develop very good players so that they can get promoted to the next level or they can avoid relegation. There is accountability and consequences for the actions you take on the sporting side. Unlike what we have now in the United States, where you can finish in last place every year, and if you're in MLS, you get a top draft pick. So it's even worse in MLS. You can finish in last place every year, so fans may get angry, they may cancel season tickets, but by and large, it doesn't have that much of an effect financially, winning and losing in American soccer. And I have years of experience and years of charts of specific clubs that can show you that the correlation between players spending on players and on training facilities and facilities in general that enhance player development, not necessarily on stadiums. So this is specific to training facilities, the sort of technical staff you bring in, the sort of facilities you have for diet, for rehab, for physical training, for gym activities, does not have the sort of correlation to profit and loss that it does in other countries because of the closed system and because there's really no premium placed on sporting excellence in this system. So all of that in mind, as you're striving for sporting excellence, you're going to develop better players. You're going to develop more competitive players. You're going to develop players who have a different kind of mentality. I know this offends some people. It doesn't offend most. Most people have come around to this point of view. American players tend to not have, they may have some technical ability, they may have some skills, but with the exception of the very top American player, they don't have necessarily universally the mentality or the tactical awareness that players from similarly sized countries or countries that have put similar resources into the game as we have. And that's because you're not incentivizing certain things. So with promotion and relegation, you're incentivizing player improvement. You're incentivizing investment in player development. You're incentivizing building superior facilities. And you're incentivizing winning and getting to the next level or maintaining the level you're at and not falling. So it's a very easy argument. You go from developing the few elite players the U.S. has developed. The U.S. has never developed a world-class player, in my opinion, on the men's side. Certainly that's not the case on the women's side, although you could argue as other countries have started to invest in the women's game, the U.S.'s advantage in the women's game has gone away because of the closed league system and reliance on certain mechanisms in the youth game, which is a conversation for another time. We're not talking about promotion and relegation right now in the women's game. We're talking about it in the men's game. But there is no question that countries that have a system of promotion and relegation have a system of solidarity payments, which is something USL has not talked about. And I think, quite frankly, they need to. MLS has talked more about it than USL. MLS has implemented it in Canada. Hence, Alphonso Davies' youth club, the Edmonton Aviators, I believe they were, got a cut of that transfer fee from MLS in Vancouver to Bayern Munich. But in the U.S., they don't practice that, except within their own MLS Next and MLS Next Pro system, which is bunk. That's fake solidarity payments. That's not incentivizing, really doing the incentivizing thing we need. And then training compensation is another piece that I think is important. But we're focusing on promotion and relegation in this series. So maybe we'll talk about training compensation and solidarity payments in the future and how that incentivizes player development. But there is no question in my mind, if you have promotion and relegation, you're incentivizing every professional club that is in a promotion and relegation system to put more on the sporting side, to put more money and resources into player development. And that includes their own academy structures. That includes players that they might sign at a young age from other clubs in the area. That might even include guys in their early 20s that they sign that are working their way up the food chain or are falling down to whatever level. And you invest in superior facilities, better training facilities, not some of the quite frankly, there are a couple clubs right now in the USL ecosystem that have an absolutely shambolic, non-professional training setup. It's not many of them. Okay, I'm not saying it's even a quarter of clubs or a majority of clubs. I'm saying it's a small percentage, but there are a few. Those clubs will have to invest. Their owners will have to invest in better training facilities, or they won't survive. So it's survival of the fittest also. May sound Darwinian, may sound too kind of capitalist or free market for some of y'all out there. I get it. But that's how we are in a free market. We are competing with other countries. We need to develop the same level of players and the same depth in our player pool that countries like Germany, Spain, England, the Netherlands. Netherlands is a very small country, but they develop that kind of player pool. Portugal, very small country, 10 million people. They develop that kind of player pool. Belgium, France, the most obvious one, right? And obviously Brazil and Argentina and Uruguay. It's amazing. Uruguay is such a small country. Look at the depth of their player pool. There are incentives and there are triggers, and it's not just, don't come back at me and say, oh, it's because soccer or football is the most popular sport in those countries. It's not always the most popular sport, especially among young people. In France, it's never been the most popular sport, by the way. Yet they look at how much they've accomplished, right? There's competition everywhere. That's a canard when we come back and say, oh, well, in the U.S. or in Canada, I hear it from Canadians too, but less so. Oh, we have hockey in Canada. In the U.S., we have American football. Okay, whatever. It's also a huge market. We also have 350 million people, okay? And we have more young players participating in this sport in raw numbers than in any other country on the planet, including China and India, which have much larger populations. So there's no excuse anymore. So let's get this done. Let's get ProRel done. I'm very interested in seeing how USL intends to build this out. It's easy to say because the upside is very clear. It's easy for owners, I think, to vote on promotion and relegation now that they understand it. And that's why it passed with a supermajority, and it passed with more than a supermajority. Passed with about 90% among USL owners. There are a few clubs that voted no. They have their own interests in mind. I mean, I know one of the clubs that voted no very well, and I don't fault them for it. But everybody else sees how it could be good for their business and good for the sport of soccer in this country. And there is no question that's the case in terms of player development. Now, in future parts of this series, we will get into the financial side of it, which is a little more, there is more pushback on that, and I understand how there's more pushback on that, and there are some good counter arguments. And part of the reason there's a greater financial commitment is because in promotion and relegation, you have to incentivize player development and player excellence, unlike in the current system. So obviously you're going to spend more on the sporting side. This just goes with the territory. So that's one of the pushbacks on the financial side, but it's one of the many benefits on the player side. So we'll be back with that one in the near future.